Hi guys, welcome back to the DeFi series. In the last videos, we have set the foundational concepts of DeFi. From now on, things will get pretty interesting. So, in this video, we will talk about MakerDAO, one of the largest and oldest DAO in the history of DeFi. We will see how MakerDAO works, what is DAI, how does DAI maintain its peg to $1. We will also talk about the recent rebranding of MakerDAO into Sky. So, let's get started. Let's first understand what is MakerDAO. MakerDAO is a type of DAO whose purpose is to generate DAI. Let me break it down for you. So, what do we mean by DAO is DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It is a type of organization that is self governing. What I mean by that is it doesn't have any central authority or entity controlling it. Instead, it is being governed in a decentralized manner. And how it's done is these DAOs they have their own governance token. So, whoever holds those governance tokens, they have the authority to decide the direction in which DAO will move on. So, if we bring it back to MakerDAO, the MakerDAO is having its own governance token called MKR. These holders of MKR decide the direction of MakerDAO. And we talked about the other term, which is DAI. Like MakerDAO helps in generating DAI. If you have been following along in the stable coins video, we have talked about DAI, but I'll briefly summarize here. So DAI is a type of stable coin whose value is soft pegged to $1. And initially, when it was started in 2017, known as single collateral DAI, it was being backed by cryptocurrency like ETH. And since it was being backed by just ETH, it was called single collateral DAI or SKY. Later in 2019, the MakerDAO collateral increased to various other cryptocurrencies other than ETH. With this being backed by multiple collaterals, it was called multi collateral DAI, called MCD. So now you understand little bit history of MakerDAO as well. Now let's talk about the tokenomics. So MakerDAO is now called Sky, but for now I'll talk about the tokens that came along with MakerDAO. So MakerDAO is having two tokens. One is called DAI that we have seen, which is a stable coin, and other also we have talked about briefly, which is MKR, which is the governance token. So now you understand what is MakerDAO. Let's see how it works. So what happens is users who want to generate DAI, they need to submit a collateral into the protocol, and in return they will get to generate DAI. And this DAI that they generate is kind of a loan that they have taken from the protocol. And as you know, whenever you take a loan, you need to repay it along with the interest rate. So, in the MakerDAO terminology, this interest rate is called stability fees, which the users need to pay, and it needs to be paid in DAI. And then we also have this concept of over collateralization. So, what I mean by that is, let's say if you want to borrow $1 worth of DAI, so you need to deposit your collateral more than what you will borrow. And this is done to ensure that the DAI is being backed by excess collateral. You might have understood by now that MakerDAO is a lending and borrowing protocol and it works in a decentralized manner without any middlemen. And how it's done is through smart contracts. So when users they lock up their collateral to generate DAI, the smart contracts that do this job were earlier called as collateralized debt positions, called CDP. But now in 2019, they have renamed CDP to vaults. So whenever you hear the term vault, just think of a smart contract that locks up your collateral and helps you to generate DAI. So I briefly mentioned about the concept of over collateralization. So So over-collateralization depends on the asset that has been kept as collateral, and the assets that you can collateralize is something that is up to the governance to decide. They have some whitelisted assets that you can collateralize, something like ETH or maybe wrapped Bitcoin or USDC, and then you take DAI as debt. So the collateralization ratio, which is another term, the collateralization ratio is the ratio of collateral versus the debt to ensure that the position is not liquidated. So it varies from different types of assets and the collateral type. But at this point of time, you might be wondering, if I have certain cryptocurrency, why will I be interested in over collateralizing? Why will I not directly use the cryptocurrency? So there are different reasons to it. One of them is MakerDAO allows you to access the liquidity in the form of DAI without you selling your asset. So let me take an example for you. Let's say you believe that the price of ETH is going to go up, and you consider ETH to be like a source of value, something like gold, and you don't want to sell it. But at the same time, there comes a requirement where you want to maybe buy, let's say, an Apple Watch. Now, in this case, since you believe the price of ETH will go up, you don't want to sell ETH and then buy an Apple Watch, but you very much like the latest model of Apple Watch and you want to get it. So, what you can do is you can bring your ETH to MakerDAO, you can submit your ETH as collateral to MakerDAO, and you will get DAI. With that DAI, you can off ramp it, and then you can purchase the Apple Watch. So, what happens in this case? You are still able to get the liquidity that you want without giving up on the cryptocurrency that you believe in. The other aspect is I wanted to hold ETH because I believed in the potential of ETH going forward. So, these are the reasons why somebody might be interested in taking a loan by providing a collateral that is over collateralized. I hope it makes sense now. Having talked about what is MakerDAO, how does it work, and why will somebody use such a platform, now let's move on to the next aspect, which is okay, we have a cryptocurrency which is stable called DAI. We want to make sure it's being pegged to $1. But you might be thinking, like, how does DAI maintain its peg to $1 actually? We have touched upon this concept of stability fees already, which is the interest that you pay when you take DAI as debt. But in case you might be wondering, like, how does this stability fees help in maintaining DAI to its peg? So let me break it down for you. So let's say currently the price of one DAI is greater than $1. So for this example, let's take one DAI is equal to 1.05 US dollar. So this is the case, and we know we are interested in bringing it back to $1. So to ensure that one DAI is pegged to $1, what the protocol will do is protocol will decrease the stability fees. So that means the interest that the borrowers need to pay has been reduced. And as you can guess, if the interest is reduced, what will happen is more users will come to the protocol and they would want to mint more DAI, right? So more and more users will come and they'll try to mint DAI. And if more DAI is being minted, it means the supply of DAI has increased. This relates to how economic conditions work. If the supply of DAI has increased, it will result in prices dropping, ensuring that now one DAI is being pegged to $1. So this is one of the scenarios. I hope it's clear. So now let's walk through the other scenario, which is DAI is less than 1 US dollar. So let's take example of one DAI is equal to 0.95 US dollar. So what happens in this case is, since now I am interested in increasing pegging of DAI by $1, what I'll do as a protocol is I'll increase the stability fees. And as you already know, if the interest rate has been increased, the users, they have the loan, they don't want to pay more interest rate. So what they will do is they will try to repay the loan as soon as possible. And in this case, what happens is when they repay the loan, they give back the DAI. This case, DAI is no longer in circulation. That means the supply of DAI is reduced. And as we know, if supply of anything is reduced in the economic aspects, the price will go up. The price of DAI will go up. And this is how the stability fees factor helps in controlling the stability of DAI. I hope it's clear. So now let's move on to the next factor, which is DAI savings rate. We call it DSR. So in this case, what happens is this DSR is very similar to how we operate in the normal finance, traditional finance. So let's say I have a savings account. I'll get interest on top of the money that I hold in the savings account. Similar is the concept here. Let's say you have DAI, and if you deposit your DAI into a smart contract, you can actually earn interest on top of it, which is called DAI savings rate. So now let's see how this DAI savings rate can affect the price of DAI. So in this case also we will walk through both these examples. So let's walk through the first scenario where the price of DAI is greater than $1. So what will happen is the protocol will decrease this DAI saving rate. And if this rate is reduced, that means people are no longer incentivized to deposit their DAI with us. So, what happens in this case is some of them may withdraw their DAI. So, now the DAI is no longer logged and DAI is back in supply, which means the supply has increased. That will result in the price getting dropped. And now let's understand the second scenario where the price of one DAI is less than US dollar. So what we will do is we will increase the DSR. Once we increase this DAI saving rate, that means more and more people will get interested in depositing DAI. So they deposit DAI in smart contract. That means the DAI is locked up. If DAI is locked, that means the supply is less, and if supply is less, the price is supposed to go up. So now one DAI will be pegged to $1. I hope this makes sense so far. That's how this DAI savings rate play a role in pegging. So now let's understand some of the risk parameters. And these are being set by governance and it's specific to the asset and the collateral type. It will vary depending on the asset and the collateral type. So one of the parameters is called debt ceiling. So as the name suggests, this DAI that we take as debt, there is a maximum limit on how much DAI can be borrowed. This is what we call debt ceiling. And the other parameter is called the liquidation ratio, which is the ratio of collateral to debt that a vault must maintain in order to avoid liquidation. Whenever any of the vaults go below this liquidation ratio, the vault will get liquidated. And we will see in some time what happens in such a case. So there are other methods as well. We have already talked about overcollateralization. It ensures that DAI is backed by overcollateralized cryptocurrencies. And then I want to talk about another actor in the ecosystem, which are keepers. So these keepers could be like a human being or they could be automated bots. The idea is they are incentivized for this arbitrage opportunities. So what happens is They monitor the whole MakerDAO ecosystem. They trigger the liquidations, and as a result of it, they get rewarded. And they also participate in these auctions that happen. As we all know, these keepers are incentivized for arbitrage opportunities. Let's understand this arbitrage with the help of an example. So, in this case, we have the first scenario where the price of DAI is greater than $1. So, let's say the price of DAI currently is $1.05. Then the users that hold the DAI token will want to sell it. So, the users will sell their DAI token, and by selling the tokens, they have made a little bit of profit here. So this is one scenario. And the second scenario is where the price of DAI is less than $1. So let's assume that currently the price of DAI is $0.95. In this case, if the value of DAI goes below $1, the users are interested in buying the DAI from the market. And this scenario is similar to how we operate in traditional world. Let's say if we know the price of gold is going down, we will try to buy more and more gold and store it. So in this case also, they will buy the DAI, and what they can do is, if they have taken debt, which is again in the form of DAI, they can use this DAI that they got at discount to repay the loan. So in this case, if you see, the user is getting a discount of 5% now in repaying the. I hope with this it's clear how arbitrage works. Now let's get going. So, the other thing that I want to talk about is this emergency shutdown, which is something which the Sky governance can trigger. And this is like a last resort that the protocol will do. And when this emergency shutdown begins, what happens is the people who hold the DAI, they can still claim their collateral at the target value of 1 US dollar. And this is like the ultimate way to ensure that the DAI is having its pegging. So that's like one of the last resort that the protocol will do, and it's fully in the hands of MKR token holders that run the protocol. So with this, now you understand how DAI maintain its pegging. So now let's get going. Now let's understand how MakerDAO works with help of examples. So we'll take two examples. So first, let's start with a happy scenario. Let's say you have ETH, you have one ETH, and let's say the price of ETH is $2,000, and you want to take a loan on it. So, what you do is you come to MakerDAO, you deposit your one ETH, which is worth $2,000 now, into the MakerDAO protocol, and you will get to generate DAI. So we have talked about the concept of overcollateralization. So let's say the collateralization ratio for this case is 1.5. What that means is if I have 2000 worth of dollar and the collateralization ratio is 1.5, at max, I can take $1,333 as debt. And if we take this much debt, then we are at the collateralization level. That means the risk of getting liquidated is a lot higher. But in this case, we want to play safe, we want to be happy. So, what we will do is we will take loan of $800. And if you calculate, in this case, the collateralization ratio is 2.5, which is greater than 1.5. So this is a safe place that we are at. And if you want to get your collateral back, what you need to do is you need to repay this debt of $800 along with the stability fees, the interest rate that we talked about. So in order to get the collateral back, you will repay the borrowed amount, which is $800 plus the stability fees. And Let's say if you're holding ETH and you have taken this loan, and in the meantime, if the price of ETH goes up from, let's say, $2,000 to $2,000, then eventually you have made some profit there by still holding your ETH and not letting it go. And if you want to maybe get the collateral back and now use that ETH, you can get the collateral back in the way I mentioned. So this is what a happy scenario looks like. Now, let's talk about another scenario which is not so happy. So, in this case, we will see what happens when the vault is liquidated. So, let's consider the same scenario. We have one ETH, and you, as a user, come to MakerDAO, deposit one ETH, and wants to get DAI. Let's take the collateralization ratio set by the protocol as 1.5. We have taken a loan of, let's say, same $800, and we are playing safe. Let's say now the price of ETH from $2,000 dropped to $1,000. So what happens now? So now the collateral that you have is worth $1,000, and the loan that you have taken is worth $800. So now the collateralization ratio is 1.25. It is less than 1.5. That means we are about to get liquidated because in this case, the vault is under collateralized. Okay. So now you understand what we mean by liquidated and what is like the collateral ratio and what do we mean by under collateralized vault. So now let's understand what happens in the case of liquidation. So first of all, this liquidation, this needs to be triggered by a keeper. The keepers are the bots and individuals that we talked about earlier. They monitor the protocol, they monitor the system, and then if a vault is about to get under collateralized, they will trigger liquidations. When they trigger liquidation, what happens is something called collateral auction. So what happens here? The protocol will take your collateral and made it available for auction to the keepers. And these keepers will bid for the collateral in the form of DAI. Protocol is able to get the sufficient DAI from the auction to cover the debt and also the liquidation penalty. Liquidation penalty is something that the protocol has introduced to disincentivize the people from getting liquidated. So, from the auction bid that is going on from keepers, we will try to recover the debt plus the liquidation penalty. And this is what we call collateral auction. So, let's say there is a case where access DAI has been generated via the collateral auction. So, what happens in this case is we do reverse collateral auction. What I mean by that is if access DAI is generated, then what the protocol do is the protocol will return the access portion of collateral to the vault owner back. So now we have talked about what happens when a position or a vault is liquidated. The collateral auction kicks in. So let's talk about a scenario where the collateral auction that happened was not sufficient to cover the loan, to cover the debt. So what happens in this case, the debt becomes the protocol debt. And when there's a protocol debt, what happens is there's something called Sky protocol buffer because MakerDAO has been rebranded to Sky. So this is the buffer of DAI that the protocol has collected, and this DAI comes from the auctions being successful. So when this liquidation penalty is being paid in the form of DAI, this is the DAI, and also this comes from the stability fees. The protocol will use this buffer of DAI at the protocol level to pay the debt. And let's say if the protocol has enough DAI, they'll pay the debt along with liquidation penalty. We are all sorted. But let's say if this buffer is not sufficient, as a next step to recover the amount, what happens is we have something called debt auction. In this case, the protocol mints MKR token, and these tokens are being sold to get DAI, And this DAI is something that the protocol used to repay the debt and the penalty. As you might have guessed, if the more MKR are minted, that means the supply of MKR is increased. And if the supply of MKR is increased, we know the price of MKR will go down. So that means the people that are holding this MKR will not have any profit. And this is a way to ensure that the MKR holders, the governance holders, ensure that the protocol behaves well. Now, you might be thinking, okay, if the things are wrong in the system, in the protocol finds ways to ensure that the MKR token holders bear the consequences by reducing the price of MKR. But what about a case where the protocol is functioning well, there's no liquidation occurring, and a lot of DAI is getting accumulated in the SKY protocol buffer that we talked about through the stability fees, through the auctions that are coming in? So let's say if we have access protocol buffer which exceeds above a certain limit. So what happens is something called surplus auction because now we have surplus DAI. So what happens in the surplus auction is the surplus DAI that we have, it will be auctioned for MKR, and the MKR that we get will be destroyed. It will be burned. So when the MKR is burned, that means the supply of MKR is reduced. And as we know, if a supply of anything is reduced, that means the price will go up. So this is the way how the protocol makes sure the MKR holders get the benefits if everything is working smoothly. I hope it makes sense. So now we have seen how MakerDAO works with the help of two examples. In the first one, there was this happy scenario, and in the second one, we talked about the liquidation scenario. As you can see in the examples, we have talked about collateralization ratio. I want to talk about another aspect. Reason being, in some of this DeFi lending and borrowing protocols, there might be cases where you won't see collateralization ratio, and you might wonder why is this number different and why is the calculation not giving me correct result. So there is this another concept called loan to value ratio. So let's talk about what it means and what are the differences. So as we know, collateralization ratio is the ratio of collateral to debt that a vault has, and the loan to value ratio is something which is inverse of collateralization ratio. So what I mean by that is if you want to calculate the LTV, you need to divide the loan that you have taken by the collateral, and that will give you the LTV. So this is one important concept to keep in mind. We will see the same thing LTV being used in the Spark Sky. So just wanted to touch it briefly here. As we all know, MakerDAO has been rebranded to Sky last year, and to understand the reason behind it, we need to go a little back and see why it has been done. So, as you all know, MakerDAO is the largest DAO that ever exists. So when the DAO is as large as MakerDAO, there are a lot of people who are holding the governance token. MakerDAO was going through governance scaling related issues. So to overcome it, the co-founder of MakerDAO, Rune Christensen, proposed Maker Endgame in May 2023, and the whole idea is to promote sustainable growth within the MakerDAO ecosystem in a decentralized manner. The short term goal for the Maker Endgame is to grow the supply of DAI to $100 billion within 3 years. So, now first let's see where the supply of DAI is currently. If we go to CoinGecko, we can see USDS, which is what DAI has been rebranded to, and this now tracks the circulating supply of USDS along with all the wrappers. So if you see here, the total supply is close to 7 billion. 100 billion seems like a bit of an ambitious target. So let's see what happens. Now let's walk through the different phases of Endgame. So we have 5 phases. The phase one is all about the beta launch. It's about rebranding the MakerDAO. launching a new website, and then going up with this new unified brand. The idea is to bring in more people. The second phase is the sub-DAO launch. The sub-DAOs are now called stars. So sub-DAOs are these smaller specialized community that can focus on a specific product, and they will have their own governance token, they will have their own decision. So these sub-DAOs will be able to organize themselves, so the decision making will be faster. And the sub-DAOs will have their own tokens that we talked about. They will be distributed through farming to the holders of upgraded DAI. And the sub-DAO will share the underlying ecosystem, the code base, and everything that the MakerDAO has done so far, so that it can utilize and leverage the whole potential of MakerDAO, because this is something where most DAOs face issues in. And then in the third phase, the plan is to launch AI tools for governance. The fourth phase is also for incentivizing the governance in a better way. And in the fifth and the final stage, the plan is to launch their own blockchain. All these phases will be done one after the other. So now let's talk about where we stand today. The phase one has been launched. We have seen the rebranding of MakerDAO to Sky. We have a new website. We have seen the protocol launched two tokens. So now we have a stable coin called USDS, and we have a governance token called SKY. The DAI stable coin is now what we have as USDS, and the maker is what we have now as SKY. Now let's talk about what it means for the users. So the users that already hold DAI or MKR, it's optional for them to upgrade. So the protocol had made it optional. If you want to upgrade, go to their portal and then upgrade. And how the upgradation work is, since the stable coins are value stable, so you can convert one DAI to one USDS. But in the case of the governance token, one MKR will be equal to 24,000 Sky tokens. In case if you're planning to convert or upgrade your DAI, then you will get awards from all these sub-DAOs. You will be able to farm the sub-DAO tokens, and it's a good way to get associated with the system. One of the key differences between DAI and USDS is the USDS is having a upgradable smart contract, and there is a freeze function in it. And as of now, the function is not enabled. But the reason why protocol has introduced this function is going forward, USDS will be backed by real world assets, and there will be some legal regulations or to ensure the security. That's why they have introduced it. But folks are having mixed responses to it. Some believe that it might not be a good idea for the decentralization of a stable coin, but the co-founder Rune Christensen has cleared it. Whenever this freeze function will be implemented, it will be done only via the approval of the MKR holders. It will be only implemented whenever the governance approves it, if required. So that's another point which needed clarity here. These are the changes that are done. And then we also have our first sub-DAO called Spark sub-DAO. So Spark sub-DAO is a lending protocol, and it's forked from Aave to focus more in the DeFi space. Sky is having a white paper that talks about the protocol at a detailed level. If you want to go deep in it, do check it out. I'll see if we can cover it later in the technical aspect. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope this was useful. In the next video, we will see the overview of the Sky protocol and the Spark DAO in action. So stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.